Marvel's The Incredible Hulk hit store shelves and spinner racks in February of 1986. The same month Sade's Promise was the #1 album, while all the stylish ladies rocked shoulder pads and everyone was wearing Ray-Bans. This issue deals with the aftermath of a rampaging Hulk, now physically separated from Bruce Banner as he rampages through New Mexico. While the top guns from both East and West Coast Avengers, Namor, Wonder Man, Hercules, and Iron Man try to handle the brute, Betty Ross and She-Hulk must decide if an experimental procedure can save Bruce's life as he lies helpless in a coma. Doc Samson, engineer of the Hulk-Banner split, interferes with our heroes, while She-Hulk agrees to allow the procedure to be done on her ill cousin. The Hulk wanders off as Samson and the Avengers fight. Meanwhile, Bruce seems to come out of his coma by the end of the issue. The story continues in The Incredible Hulk 317. This is one of the few Hulk stories written and drawn by John Byrne. Byrne, who was working on Alpha Flight in 1985, switched roles with Bill Mantlo in 1986. After working on only 5 issues of the Hulk, Byrne left the title in an apparent argument with editor-in-chief Jim Shooter over creative differences. Byrne declined to provide more details on the matter. Keith Williams is credited as additional inker for this issue. He became John Byrne's go-to background artist. Keith received his Bachelor of Fine Arts in Media Arts and studied under Will Eisner, the creator of the Spirit comic strip. Keith started working for Marvel in 1982. Andrew Yankus was the colorist on this issue. Yankus joined Marvel in 1976, where he started as a color correction artist on reprints of older comics for Marvel Tales. One of his earliest assignments as a staff colorist was 1977's Uncanny X-Men 104. He would go on to color John Byrne's Alpha Flight run in the 1980s. His other credits included the Hobgoblin's first appearance in 1983's Amazing Spider-Man 238. Rick Parker got his start in the comics industry with Marvel in 1970s. Parker went on to illustrate a series of graphic novel parodies for papercut slices. Titles include Diary of a Stinky Dead Kid, Harry Potty and the Deathly Boring, and Hunger Pains. This issue was co-edited by Dennis O'Neil. Now, those who don't know Dennis O'Neil really should. O'Neil was a writer and editor, principally for Marvel and DC Comics from the 60s through to the 90s. After leaving the Navy, O'Neil wrote bi-weekly columns for a newspaper in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. During the slow summer months, he filled the space with a series on the revival of the comics industry. This attracted the attention of DC writer Roy Thomas. When Thomas left DC to work for Marvel, he suggested that O'Neil take Marvel's writer's test, which involved adding dialogue to a wordless 4-page excerpt of a Fantastic Four comic. O'Neil's entry resulted in Stan Lee offering O'Neil a job. O'Neil and artist Neil Adams revived Professor X's character in X-Men 65 in one of the creative team's earliest collaborations. In 1980, he took on the scripting chores of The Amazing Spider-Man, which he did for a year. During his run on Iron Man, O'Neil introduced Obadiah Stane, later the Ironmonger, plunged Tony Stark back into alcoholism, and turned Jim Rhodes into Iron Man, and created the Silver Centurion armor. While working for Marvel, he helped write the original character concept for Transformers, and is credited as the person who named Optimus Prime. After returning to DC Comics in 1986, he became the editor of the various Batman titles and served in the capacity until the year 2000. Don Daly is the other co-editor of this issue. Daly served as a consulting editor on the G.I. Joe and the Transformers limited series for Marvel. His other comic credits include editing the various Punisher titles, Captain America, Nam, and Sleepwalker, amongst others. He also did photographic artwork for the cover of the Punisher War Journal, number 36. At this point in time, Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief. I've gone into detail about Shooter in another video. You should check it out. In 1976, Shooter joined Marvel as an assistant editor and writer, and by 1978, he was selected to be editor-in-chief. By 1981, Shooter saw success with the disco-themed Dazzler #1. Shooter was editor-in-chief during the second Spider-Man-Superman crossover event and saw great success with Secret Wars. For more on Shooter's troubling attitudes and why he was fired from Marvel in 1987, check out my other video. Here's an interesting factoid. This issue is apparently the first time Betty Ross and She-Hulk Jennifer Walters meet. What? Even with Marvel's 616 sliding timescale, it's got to be at least a decade since Bruce became the Hulk, and his only family member has never met the love of his life in all those years? Wild stuff. Side note about the She-Hulk. Did you know that Marvel, or in this case Stan Lee, only created the She-Hulk out of fear that Universal Television was about to introduce a female Hulk on the live-action TV show? Marvel wanted to make sure they own the rights to any type of female Hulk character, so they rushed Jennifer Walters into creation. So you may be thinking, Banner and Hulk physically split? Yes, all thanks to psychiatrist Doc Samson. Samson manages to capture the Hulk and physically separates the two of them, allowing Banner to eventually marry Betty Ross. However, Banner and the Hulk's molecular structure destabilized and threatened to kill them, requiring Samson to reunite them with the aid of Vision in issue 323. Speaking of Doc Samson, he gets a new look in this issue. It's even referenced by Iron Man himself. Also mentioned is the fact that Samson has some of Hulk's brute strength, thanks to an earlier experiment where Banner was able to siphon off some gamma radiation that powers the Hulk. Samson then exposes himself to that gamma radiation, giving him superhuman strength and jade green hair. Taking a deeper dive, I tried to find out if Stone Ridge, New Mexico actually exists. The answer is yes and no. You see, Stone Ridge, New Mexico is a small community of 21 people in the northeast part of the state, according to a 2020 census. It looks nothing like it's depicted in the issue, and obviously did not exist in 1986. I also tried to find a news station with the KLMN call letters. They do exist, but in Montana, not New Mexico, and they've only been around since the year 2000. The closest news station in Stone Ridge would be NBC's KOB. This issue featured the first and last ever Hulk conference. Dennis O'Neil, John Byrne, Don Daly, and the Big Guy himself are in the conference. In the one-pager, Dennis, John, and Don try to convince the Hulk that John knows what he's doing and not to worry about the next 12 issues. Hulk has, can I say, strong disagreements? A quick pummeling ensures that the Hulk wins out. I absolutely love the work of Byrne and Williams in this issue, from the opening first page full panel with a rampaging She-Hulk and the attention to detail in showing Hulk's devastation of Stone Ridge. All our heroes are given time to shine as they each attempt to take down the Hulk, from Iron Man's repulsor rays, Wonder Man's quick thinking, and Namor's headfirst dive bomb right into Hulk's chest. The storyline plays out really well as it bounces back and forth between the drama in the hospital and the action on the street. My two favorite panels are when Hercules dive bombs into frame to save Iron Man and subdue the Hulk, and when Doc Samson has our heroes take a moment to evaluate their actions by looking at the devastation they've caused in trying to stop him. The value of this issue varies. I found mint or near mint versions of this issue for $9.60 on mycomicshop.com. It sells for $68 on Amazon, and I see an issue that sold for $71 on Heritage Auctions. 1986 was a banner year for John Byrne. His Superman title for DC was making records in the fall, helping to propel DC to a 54% market share of comic issues sold that year compared to Marvel's 46%. Total units of comics sold that year were 812,000, with June's Man of Steel #1 leading the way with 125,000 units sold, or just over 15% of all comics that year. 1986 also served as a major turning point for comics. It saw the release of extremely successful comic series like Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' Watchmen and Frank Miller's Batman, The Dark Knight Returns. Marvel reunited the original 5 X-Men into a new team called X Factor. In fact, Marvel saw dominance with 3 mutant-related titles coming out monthly. Their success inspired Marvel to create a crossover event called The Mutant Massacre, which was also a huge success in sales. Marvel wasn't content just with mutants, however. They gave Punisher his own ongoing series, while Steve Rogers lost the title of Captain America to John Walker, for a short time at least. As mentioned previously, DC lured Marvel writer and artist John Byrne to reboot Superman, and Frank Miller transitioned from The Dark Knight Returns to reimagine Batman's origin for Batman, Year 1. 1986 also saw the introduction of characters like Eddie Brock and Booster Gold, to name a few. Dark Horse Comics launched in February of '86, and by July came out with Dark Horse Presents, an anthology series featuring the debut of Paul Chadwick's Concrete, a major cult classic. On the advertising side, this issue features ads for Nestle Quick, Pineapple Kids Club, and 2 ads featuring GoBots. Marvel imprint Star Comics, which launched in 1984 and features titles that were aimed at child readers that were often adaptations of children's television series or toys, featured ad for Thundercats, Care Bears, and Misty, a blatant ripoff of The Wizard of Oz. Star Comics folded in 1988. There are several television adverts in this issue. The first is for Hanna-Barbera's Jetsons, that futuristic family we all know and love, plus an ad for the lesser-known Galtar and the Golden Lance. Family Home Entertainment were promoting both G.I. Joe and Transformers videocassettes for $14.95, or about $43 today. Of the various comic shops and conventions advertised, I found Tomorrow is Yesterday, a shop located in Rockford, Illinois. I was happy to still see them open, but under a new name. Be sure to visit Top Cut Comics at 5600 2nd Street in now Loves Park, Illinois, or check them out at topcutcomics.com. Thanks for checking out this video. If you want to see more, please hit like and subscribe. If you have suggestions for comics you want me to deep dive into, please leave a comment below. Please help and support real artists. AI is great for a lot of things, but not for creating art and replacing artists. Thank you.